back to another GCSE Maths lesson in morale. Today we are going to tackle some real GCSE exam questions from past papers, focusing on ratios, percentages, and conversions between decimals, fractions, and percentages, and looking at different levels. So we're going to start with easy, then medium, then we're going to look at some harder questions. These topics frequently appear in exams, so mastering them is key, and that's what the goal of this lesson is. So let's just get started and go straight into it. Right, so let's start with the easy questions. So we've got a recipe question to start with. A recipe uses flour and sugar in a 2:3 ratio. If 8 kilograms of flour is used, how much sugar is needed? Okay, so first we're going to write it down. So flour to sugar is 2:3. Now the question is saying if 8 kilograms of flour is used, how much sugar is needed? And they're not specifying what unit we need to give it in. So we can go with whatever. In this case, we can stick with what they've given us, which is 8 kilograms. So if the flour used is 8 kilograms, then we're going to think about, how do I go from 2 to 4? I've multiplied that by 4. I'm going to do the same to the other side. Whatever we do to one side, we always do the same to the other. And it's 12 kilograms. So for every 8 kilograms of flour, 12 kilograms of sugar is needed. Next, we are starting with percentages. What is 20% of 250? Right, with this one, remember, first, we find out what is 10%. To find 10%, we're going to do 250, and we always divide by 10 to find a 10%. 250 divided by 10 is 25. Then to go from 10 to 20%, we multiply that by 2, so we're going to multiply our number by 2 as well, so it's 50. 20% of 250 is 50. Right, next we have a conversion question. It says convert 0.7 into a percentage and a fraction. Okay, so I'm going to turn it into a fraction first and then to a percentage. 0.75, we have two numbers after the decimal. I'm going to put 75 at the top. We have two numbers after the decimal. It means we're going to put 2 zeros in front of 1, so it's 75 over 100. And we know that percentage is a fraction of 100, so 75 over 100 is the same as 75%. So, however, to get to the fraction, 75 over 100 is a fraction, but that's not the final answer. Remember from the previous lessons, whenever you have a fraction like this, whenever you have a decimal and you want to convert it into a fraction, you're going to simplify it as much as you can. So you have a fraction like this, 75 over 100. We're going to keep simplifying until we cannot simplify anymore. So I can divide both of these numbers by 5. 75 divided by 5 is 15. 100 divided by 5 is 20. 15 over 20, I can divide it by 5 once again. 15 divided by 5 is equal to 3. 20 divided by 5 is equal to 4. So 3 over 4. You may also know that 75% is the same as 3/4, but if you didn't, you just take the fraction and simplify it as much as you can. Right, let's go to the next question. Now, let's look at a medium level type of questions from past papers. A class has boys and girls in the ratio of 5 to 7. If there are 35 boys, how many girls are there? Okay, so the ratio of boys to girls is 5 to 7. We have 35 boys. What are the number of girls? Right, we do the same thing as we've done before. We look at how do we go from 5 to 35? What do we times it by? We times it by 7. We do the exact same thing here, times it by 7. So that 7 times 7 is 49. So we have a total of 49 girls. Right, let's keep going. A coat costs £80. The price increases by 15%. What is the new price? Okay, first things first, we're going to find a 10%. 80 divided by 10 gives us the 10%, which is £8. Then we're going to half that to get to our 5%. 10 divided by 2 gives us 5. 8 divided by 2 gives us 4. So 15%, we add these two and we add our two numbers, which is equal to £12. So the price increases by £12. That is not the final answer, however. We have to add 12 to 80. We have to add 12 to 80, and that's equal to £92. So the new price of the coat is £92. Right? Good. This is the question where most students will stop at this point because they haven't read the question properly or they've forgotten. So always double check what is being asked. Am I done, or is there one more step? So you need to add that to the 80 to get the final answer, which is commonly missed. So a lot of students would forget and just leave the answer at 12. So pay attention to that as well. Okay, question 3 says express 4 over 5 as a percentage and a decimal. Okay, if we want to convert it into a percentage, remember what we say, percentage is a fraction out of 100, so we think about how do I go from 5 to 100? What do I times that by? I multiply that by 20. So what do I do to the 4? I do the exact same thing, times it by 20. 4 times 2 is 8, place the 0 there, and it's 80 over 100, which is the same as 80%, and we know 80 over 100 is equal to 0.80. Right? Hope that makes sense. Let's keep going. Now, let's look at the harder questions. The ratio of red to blue marbles is 3 to 5. if there are 40 more blue marbles than red, how many total marbles would there be? Okay, so the ratio of red to blue is 3 to 5. Now, pay very close attention. What commonly happens at this point is students will go, okay, there are 40 blue marbles. How do we go from 5 to 40? We do the same there. That is incorrect. However, if you read the question one more time, it says there are 40 more blue marbles than red. It doesn't say that there are 40 blue marbles altogether, but there are 40 more. So we look at the number of shares. Red, there are 3 shares that belong to red and 5 shares that belong to blue. Now we look at the difference between them. There are 2 more shares for blue in comparison to red, right? So that means that the 2 additional shares is equal to 40 marbles. So from that we can find out what would 1 share be equivalent to. To go from 2 to 1, we divide that by 2. We're going to do the same here, and it gives us 20. So then we know 1 share is equal to 20. So to find out how many red shares we have, we do 3 times 20. And for the blue, we do 5 times 20. 3 times 20 is 60. 5 times 20 is 100. So all together, we have 60 red marbles and 100 blue marbles. So all together, there are a total of 160 marbles. Right? So be very careful and read the question very, very carefully. Let's go on to the next question. A TV originally cost 500. It's discounted by 45%. What is the sale price? Right. Same steps as before. We find 10%. 10% of 500 is 500 divided by 10, which gives us £50. Then we go from 10 to 40%. We multiply that by 4, so we're going to do the same to 50. 50 times 4. 4 times 5 is 20, and we place a 0 in front, so it's a total of 200. But it's asking us to find 45%, so we need another 5%. So to go from 10 to 5, we need to divide that by 2, so we're going to do the same thing here. 50 divided by 2 is equal to 25. So to find 45%, we're going to add the 40 and the 5%, and we're going to do the same thing with the money values. 200 plus £25, it's £225. So that's how much discount is given. To find a discounted price, we're going to do 500 minus 225. We cannot subtract 5 from 0. We're going to borrow 1 from the 4. That becomes 10. Then we're going to borrow 1 from the 10. That becomes 9. So 10 minus 5 is 5. 9 minus 2 is 7. 4 minus 2 is 2. So the price of the TV after the reduction is £275. Hope that makes sense. Let's move on to the next question. Convert 7 over 8 into a percentage. Okay, same method as before. If we want to convert it to a percentage, we want the denominator to equal to 100. So we need to find out, what do I multiply 8 by to get to 100? Don't know that on top of my head. So I'm going to work backwards and find out what is 100 divided by 8. Whatever that is, that's the number I would multiply 8 by to get to 100. So 8 doesn't go into 1. We carry the 1 over. 8 goes into 10 once. We've got a remainder of 2. 8 goes into 20 2 times. We've got a remainder of 4. So we've reached a decimal point. We're going to place our decimal points there. And we're going to carry the 4 over. 8 into 40 goes 5 times. So the answer is 12.5. I multiply 8 by 12.5 to get to 100. So I'm going to do the same thing to the 7. 12.5 multiplied by 7. I'm going to ignore the decimal to begin with, and I'm just going to multiply. 7 times 5 is 35. I'm going to carry the 3. 7 times 2 is 14, plus the 3 is 17. 7 times 1 plus the 1 I've carried over is 8. I had one number, so originally we multiplied by 12.5. There's one number after the decimal, so I'm going to go one number in and place my decimal point there. So the answer is 87.5 over 100, which is the same as 87.5%. Right? Hope that makes sense. Let's keep going. Now a final challenge. This is a question that I've seen many students get wrong. Not hard at all, but worth going over. A price is increased by 30% to give £52. Find the original price. So we know the price after it was increased by 30%. So 100% of the price, whatever that was, which we don't know and we're trying to find, plus the additional 30% gives us 130%. So that means 130% is equal to £52. So from here, we can use the same method as we've done before with percentages. So we're saying 130% is equal to 52. So how can I go from 130% to 10%? Let's think of it like that. To go from 130 to 10, I am dividing that by 13. I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to divide 52 by 13. Now, we may not know what that is equal to, which is perfectly fine. So we look at 13's timetable. 13 times 1 is 13, 13 times 2 is 26, 13 times 3 is 39, and 13 times 4 is 52. We add a 13 every time to get to that. So 52 divided by 13 is equal to 4. So 10% of this amount is 4. So then we go from 10 to 100% rather than 130, which is what we started with. To do that, we're going to times that by 10. We're going to multiply our number by 10 as well, which, sorry, that's meant to be 1, and that gives us 40. So the original price of the item, whatever it was £40, and then there was a 30% increase, which increased it up to £52. Right? And whatever answer you get, you can always work backwards to double check that. So if you add 30% to 40, is it going to give us 52? Right? 10% of 40 is 4. 4 times 3 is equal to 12. 12 plus 40 is equal to 52. So quick double check, working backwards in your head or even writing on a piece of paper, just to double check your answer. As I always suggest, always do a quick double check where you can until you've mastered the skill. So that is it for today's lesson. If it has helped, like, subscribe, share, and leave a comment. And